Hello. So, it's been a while. Yeah, I apologize. I haven't really felt like recording or writing any what ifs. I felt a little bit burned out recently. No, that's not really an excuse for a 3 month break, but I'm back with the Disventure Camp what if this time. First Disventure Camp what if, and we're just gonna go with the flow. What this what if is basically is, in episode 3 here, Dan formed a guys' alliance with Tom, Drew, and Jake, and they were supposed to dominate their team because, it's the guys from the Cyan team and they had majority. But then Grett manipulated Tom into thinking that Drew was out for him, and like it was like exposing his spy plan. So Tom flipped to the girl side and booted at Drew, making him the second boot of the season. This what if is basically if Tom stuck with the guys and voted out Gabby instead, because that's who their plan was for some reason. Well, I guess I kind of know, but you know, it was stupid of Drew and Dan to go along with that. Anyway, Tom doesn't take Grett's threat seriously and sticks with the guys' alliance, meaning Gabby is voted off 4-3. Grett is furious but plays it cool as she knows that there's nothing she can do. But in a confessional says she has bigger plans for Tom. Gabby is heartbroken to be eliminated, especially so early, but instead of going on the bus of losers like she's supposed to, she sneaks off, similar to Kai in season 2, except she sneaks off to the purple team's camp and gives her immunity totem that she found in episode 2 to Ellie. Ellie is really sad to see the Gabby is eliminated, but she's also really grateful for the immunity totems. She was willing to do anything she can to win. Okay, moving on to this episode. This episode still starts with Fiore throwing a wobbly and burning Nick and Ashley's things. Then she goes and borrows one of Alec's books, and they interact, and it's the same as canon. Greg confronts Tom. Let me just get them here. About not voting off Drew last night. Tom simply tells her that their deal was to protect each other, not vote together. Greg processes this and says, "That's fine," and goes to find Jake. When she does, she tells Jake everything about Tom's spy job and how he's been using Jake to get further in the game. Basically, just what happens in episode 6. It's the same. Get Tom out of here. And now Jake is furious at Tom for lying to him, and yeah, it's basically the same stupid stuff as canon with Jake being an idiot. Okay, on to the challenge. This challenge is rowing in pairs across a lake and then dueling a member of the opposite team with dueling sticks. The pairs on purple team stay the same. Ellie, Alec, Fiore, Nick, Lill, Ashley. And then Fiore continues to gaslight Nick into thinking Lill is, this terrible person and the enemy. And then on Cyan team, Greg goes with Jake to ensure that he doesn't trust Tom and basically just plant loads of seeds inside of his head. Dan and Drew go together because they have an alliance together. They're both pretty geeky and nerdy, and they're both kind of younger than the other contestants. Dan's 19, Drew's 15. Yeah, which leaves Tom and Miriam to go together. So there's that. Um, when when Tom and Miriam go on the canoe together, Tom is pretty much just terrified of Miriam the entire boat journey, and Miriam probably knocks Tom off the boat a few times. While Dan and Drew make a final 2 deal, as they've noticed a lot of tension on their team and they want to work together. Greg tries to convince and gaslight Jake into hating Tom even more than he already does, and it probably goes out successfully because Jake is just so gullible. Purple team arrive to the platform thing in the middle of the water last, so they get branches, while the Cyan team get actual dueling sticks. Now, the first 2 rounds of dueling go the same. Tom versus Alec, and Grett versus Ellie, and it goes the same with Cyan team getting both the points. However, the next round, it's still going to be Lill for purple team. However, she's now going to go against Dan, because originally she went against Gabby, but Gabby isn't here. So she's now going to go against Dan, because Dan went 4th originally, but now that Gabby's not here, he's going to be pushed up a slot. Because, Drew's probably not going to want to go if he doesn't have to, because, he's 15 and he doesn't have much confidence in himself winning. Lill is definitely going to win this. Ashley destroyed Dan originally, and just, I don't see why Lill couldn't do the same thing as Dan just went with all force, but he has no force, obviously. The next round is going to be Ashley like Cannon against Jake because Jake originally went fifth, but again, like since Gabby's not here, he has to get pushed up a slot, so he goes against Ashley, and I'm pretty sure Ashley wins this. I don't really know how to explain. It's basically like Ashley's really strong. She's a farm girl. She's spends every day of her life working on the farm, so she's obviously going to be stronger. Jake, he actually put up a decent fight originally, but I don't think he can beat Ashley, which means it's tied. This team has 2 points. This team has 2 points. Next point wins. Nick goes for purple team like the original because Fiore's 6. And I don't think either of these people would really want to go, because Miriam's literally an old lady, and Drew, he's only 15. But I think, and like, we have seen Miriam to be more strong in challenges later in the future. Um, but I like early on in the episode, she didn't really seem to want to compete in challenges, and I think Drew would be a lot more enthusiastic about going. Honestly, I do think if Miriam went, I could probably say that they win the challenge, and it's a little bit of a spoiler because I think Drew goes and loses the challenge to Nick because Nick was like very aggressive and stood a good chance at winning against Jake originally. But he's not going to. Nick easily wins against Drew, I think, which means they win immunity and the reward, which is a night at a real cabin, and you also have a phone there, so you can call home and do whatever you want. When Teal team get back to camp, Jake confronts Tom about being a spy in front of everyone, and Tom can't lie his way out of the situation, which causes everyone to feel weirded out and betrayed at the campfire ceremony. Um, Everyone's sketched out by Tom. At the campfire ceremony, sorry, read the wrong line. Trevor reads out the votes, like he usually does. First vote, Jake. Second vote, Tom. Third vote, Tom. Fourth vote, Grett. That's 2 votes Tom, 1 vote Jake, 1 vote Grett. Next vote, Grett. That's 2 votes Grett, 2 votes Tom, 1 vote Jake. Third person voted out of Disventure camp is. Oh, I should probably take Jake out of here. Ooh, place your bets in the comments. Tom. Tom is furious and walks out, frustrated and annoyed. Grett has a confessional acknowledging that Tom is the strongest member on their team, but he messed with her plans, so he had to pay. Dan then has a confessional confessing to voting for Grett, as he was trying to keep the guys' lines together, but ultimately failed. So, Tom is out. Okay, this episode starts with the purple team getting their calls home. Ashley calls her farm, talks with her little sisters, that she speaks about in episode 4, and like she wanted to talk with them. So that happens. Basically goes like normal, wholesome little conversation. Then Lill goes. She calls her Girl Scout team, similar to Ashley. Just it's a normal conversation. It's pretty simple. We get to learn a little bit more about her past, I guess. Then Ellie calls her dad, because she got a letter from her dad in this episode. Again, very wholesome. I can see why they didn't make the purple team get their calls home. They all have wholesome home lives, okay? But then Alec goes. He calls his wife, and they get into another argument as usual. Oh my god! Finally, someone doesn't have a nice house. House? I don't know. Alec gets into a fight with his wife. Okay, that's all you need to know. Neither Nick or Fiore call home. Fiore just uses not knowing her parents' phone number as, her little excuse. But in reality, she just really does not want to talk to her parents. Meanwhile, Nick talks about not being too close with his parents because, they're very overprotective and stuff. Lill tries talking to Nick again, but he cuts her off by saying he can't wait to lose so he can vote off the babysitter of the year. Lill and Ashley still go out with their plan to expose Fiore by revealing her notebook, so they, stage something where, like, Lill brings fruit to the purple team, gives them all food. Nick probably accuses her of poisoning them. Meanwhile, Ashley goes into the tent, finds Fiore's notebook, takes it, reads it, realizes Fiore is actually a demon child, and they plan on exposing her later on. Now on to the challenge. Miriam and Jake are still going to cook for Cyan Team because, even though Jake hasn't heard from his grandmother, he's still really upset about the Tom situation, so he's not really in the mood to run around looking for ingredients, and Miriam's a really good cook. And Alec and Fiore also do this for Purple Team, because, they can. While looking for ingredients, Ashley and Lill expose Fiore's notebook to Nick, and Nick is, really shocked and feels bad, and he wants Fiore gone. He feels like an idiot for falling for a trap, and he also apologizes to Lill for immediately assuming Lill burned his and Ashley's things. Miriam and Jake still bond, but not over Jake's grandmother passing, as, he doesn't know that. However, that does probably get brought up in the little thing. Is, Jake is stressed. It adds to Jake's stress. He's been feeling very stressed with, the whole Tom situation. He's also worried about his grandmother. But the whole, bonding session is mainly about Miriam helping Jake get over Tom. Miriam tells Jake about an argument she got into with her husband, many arguments, because, everyone gets into arguments. And she says that no matter how mad they were at each other, they always forgave each other because they loved each other. She then talks about her husband's passing and how he got into a car accident, and Jake and Miriam, bond while in tears because, it's sad. Teal Team still win the challenge because Miriam is the best cook in the world. And now without Gabby for Ellie to make the deal with, they made a deal that whichever one of their teams lost, they would volunteer as the representative to vote an extra person off the other team so that they could protect each other, but now Gabby's not there. Grett volunteers as the representative because she wants power over the other team. Because, she's manipulative, devious, and, So this vote out, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. Nick, Ashley, and Lill are all going to work together, as well as Alec, Fiore, and Ellie. So obviously everyone is expecting a tie. Nick, Ashley, and Lill aren't too bothered by this because, they think any of them could beat Fiore in a tie because, she's 6. But Ellie also knows that there's going to be a tie, so she tells Alec and Fiore about her immunity totem that Gabby gave her, and basically at the elimination ceremony, she placed the immunity totem on Fiore, so any votes for Fiore will not count, and, as expected, the first vote is for Fiore. Next vote, Fiore. Doesn't count. Oh, they don't count, by the way. Third vote, Fiore. Doesn't count. That's no valid votes yet. Next vote. Dun dun dun. Ashley. Fourth person voted out of Disventure camp. Ashley. All 3 of Nick, Ashley, and Lill are all shocked, and Alec explains that Ashley is the glue holding Lill and Nick together, and all 3 of them kind of go quiet as they know this is true. So Ashley is the eliminated contestant. But we still have Grett's vote. 5th person voted out of Disventure camp is Alec. Again, everyone is shocked. No one's seen this coming. But Grett asks them what they expected. Alec is by far the strongest member and probably one of the smartest on their team. And, she wants to keep her team as strong as possible. So Ashley and Alec both make their way to the bus of losers, both devastated and furious. Okay, moving on. This episode starts with Ellie and Fiore having a little alliance meeting. Mainly Fiore poking fun at last night's elimination, saying now that the hillbilly girl is gone, they can dominate the game. Ellie cuts her off, saying in case Lill and Nick do work together, it's important they stay loyal to each other, which Fiore obviously agrees to. Nick goes to talk to Lill once again, apologizing for not believing her. Lill cuts him off and says she forgives him, as anyone could have fell for Fiore's trap. Even she herself couldn't believe it. But, really, she doesn't really trust him as much. Like, she felt a really strong bond with him, and he broke that. So she's kind of just trying to, forgive him for the alliance's sake and, like, her own sake of getting further in the game. But she's still, hesitant to trust him. Nick is really grateful and, promises that he won't blow this second chance. And, they hug and it's all cute and stuff. And then on Cyan team, Grett notices Miriam and Jake bonding, even more since last episode, and she knows she needs to bring Drew and Dan to her side, otherwise she could be going home next. Trevor and Derek then explain the challenge: first person on each team to capture a flag, which is in the middle of a lake, without getting shot by Jensen, wins immunity. And there will be a double elimination. One person from each team will be eliminated, so you need immunity. Purple team obviously split up into their two groups, Fiore and Ellie, and Nick and Lill. Nick has a confessional saying this is his chance to prove himself to Lill, to prove that he's still in this game and he's taking it seriously. He then attempts to twirl his hat around his finger like a basketball, but his hat crashes against his head, causing him to fall to the ground. On Cyan, Miriam and Jake obviously go together, and Dan and Drew are about to head off together too, and Gresh, kind of just joins them, like she forces her way into their group and tries to get them to work with her, and at first they aren't really buying it, but when Grett brings up the fact that after she's voted off, they'll have to be forced into a tiebreaker against Jake and Miriam, and one of them will certainly lose, it doesn't matter who they vote. And Dan and Drew kind of have like a little meeting without Grett to, discuss this, and at first Dan is completely against the idea. But Drew holds up a sign, telling him to hear her out, as her logic is sound. They kind of need Gresh. After they vote off either Miriam or Jake, they can just lose Gresh because they don't need her after their one vote off. So Dan and Drew kind of agree. They're both kind of hesitant, but they kind of know it's for their best interest that they work with her. Drew then has a confessional saying where he holds up a sign saying he needs that million for her, so he's willing to do whatever it takes. Grett tells them her plan of distracting Jake and Miriam, so Jensen will get them first before them. She then tells Drew to go distract Jake and Miriam, while Dan gets Jensen. Dan cuts her off, saying, asking her what she's doing. Grett tells him that she's the one who came up with the plan, and Dan tells her no. If she wants them to work with her, she has to get Jensen to get Miriam and Jake while they distract them. Grett is furious, but knowing she's not in a place to make demands, she reluctantly agrees. And then Drew holds up a sign after Grett walks off, telling Dan Grett could have broken her alliance with them, and Dan asks Drew why he cares so much, and Drew holds up another sign saying every decision in this game determines the rest of their life. Grett walks off, mumbling hateful thoughts to herself. She then spots Jensen and throws a stick at him, causing him to chase her. And as she runs towards Drew, Dan, Miriam, and Jake, who are having a very loud conversation, this allows Jensen to shoot Miriam and Jake, but Grett grabs Drew's hand to stop him from getting captured, causing Drew to drop his notebook. But Drew refuses to move on without it, so he goes back for his notebook, but this causes him to also get caught, shot down, leaving the game between Grett and Dan. Ellie and Fiore run into the cafeteria, where they find Lill and Nick. Their loud fighting attracts Jensen, so Ellie thinks fast and throws Fiore on her shoulders and then uses Nick as a human shield to block Jensen's darts. This allows Ellie and Fiore to escape, but Nick is shot by Jensen and eliminated. Lill is in shock, but seeing the tin trays, she uses them to dodge Jensen's arrows, and then, she escapes too. When Dan and Grett make it to the lake and dodge Jensen's arrows, they then start fighting about who should row the raft, but then Jensen shows up forcing them to work together. When Ellie and Fiore make it to the lake, they build a raft to swim across. Since Fiore can't swim, they have to build a raft. That's their only option. Lill then shows up, and she knows she can't waste any time building a raft because Ellie and Fiore are miles ahead of her at this point. She then spots bamboo sticks and realizes she can use them one to sneak under the water, yet still breathing, obviously, so she doesn't drown. And she can hopefully make it before Ellie and Fiore. When Dan and Grett get to the platform, Dan asks Grett how they're going to decide who will win immunity. Grett has her say a little speech saying she's obviously winning immunity as she did all the hard work. Dan blows up on Grett, saying she's been treating everyone, especially himself and Drew, terribly. She just expects them to do everything for her. He then pushes Grett into the water and wins immunity for himself. Ellie and Fiore are pretty close to the platform, but then Ellie spots a small piece of bamboo moving past them. Ellie squints her eyes to see into the murky water, and then she then spots Lill, who's holding the bamboo stick, and she's like running across the water. And she realizes she's about to win immunity, so she uses the log she's been using to deflect the arrows that Jensen's been shooting at them to break Lil's bamboo. Lill realizes they're playing dirty, so she knocks over their raft and continues swimming. Ellie realizes Lill is about to win immunity, so she picks up Fiore, who is trying not to drown, and she throws her toward the bell. While Lill is climbing onto the platform about to win immunity, Fiore comes flying through the air and crashes into the bell, winning immunity but giving her a massive concussion. Ellie then has a confessional right after stating that letting Fiore win immunity was risky, but it's even more risky to throw herself into a tiebreaker that she'll definitely lose. After the challenge, Drew brings Dan and Grett together and holds up a sign telling them they have to work together. If any of them stand a chance at winning, they need to push their differences aside and vote together. Grett is very annoyed and over it, but she pulls herself together and agrees, as she knows if she doesn't, she's gone tonight. Dan also agrees, as logically it makes sense, but in a confessional state, he's not too sure if he should save Grett. At elimination, Trevor reads out the Teal team's votes first. So let me get them here, First vote, Grett. Second vote, Jake. Third vote, Jake. That's 2 votes Jake, 1 vote Grett. Next vote, Grett. That's 2 votes for each person, Jake and Grett. First eliminated contestant tonight is Jake. Jake and Miriam are stunned that Grett got into the minds of Drew and Dan. Before Jake walks out, he thanks Miriam for her help. Teal team head back to camp, and it's time for Purple team's votes. First vote, Ellie. Next vote, Nick. Oh, I should probably move these guys up. That's 1 vote Ellie, 1 vote Nick. Third vote, Ellie. That's 2 votes Ellie, 1 vote Nick. The final vote goes to Nick. What a shocker! We have a tie. What? Now the tiebreaker was kind of hinted at in Disventure camp when they had a tie in episode. It was 12. Yeah, episode 12. They had to like tie a bunch of sticks together, and then reach for a key, and then get the key. It was very complicated and confusing to explain, but it's more simple if you've seen it. Now Ellie is definitely beating Nick. I think she'd be more aware with what to do because Nick, he's never really spent much of his time outdoors. Yeah, Lill could potentially help him, but I think Nick's not very smart, so I don't think he's really going to be able to understand what to do, especially when he's under all this pressure. So I think Ellie definitely wins a tiebreaker, meaning Nick is eliminated. Before Nick leaves, he wishes Lill luck, telling her to win for the 4-person alliance. Lill tells him she'll try her hardest, and then places a kiss on Nick's cheek. Nick then walks out blushing. The episode ends with Nick and Jake receiving a letter, which leaves them stunned. I wonder what it could be. Oh my god. Okay. How do I guess I'll just move them up. They're not eliminated. Well, I mean, the episode begins with Jake and Nick swapping teams, okay? So, Jake and Nick. There we go. Nick is determined to make the merge so he can meet up with Lill and, continue their little romance that they both know they had. Because let's be real, okay? No one's really talking about this. Nick and Lill definitely had feelings for each other in the original. I mean, I don't think they had feelings for each other after Nick fell for Fiore's traps. And even in the beta version of Disventure Camp, they both had a crush on each other. Like, they obviously have a crush on each other. And this is not the video to talk about that. Okay, sorry. So Nick tries being as friendly as possible to make a good impression, and he gets along fine with Drew and Dan, just a little bit weird, I guess. And Dan sees him as a good opportunity to get Grett out once and for all. When Jake joins Purple, Lill is excited as she knows she's at the bottom of the team, so she tries being as friendly as possible towards Jake to get him on her side. The next day, Lill finds Jake sitting alone and asks him about his worries. Jake opens up, telling telling her, about Tom and how mad he's feeling at Tom for using him. And Lill asks Jake how he knows Tom was using him, and Jake stutters a little bit before realizing he doesn't have an answer. Lill tells Jake about Nick and how it made her upset when he believed Fiore over her so easily, but she slowed down and saw through Nick's point of view. And despite how mad Nick got her, she never gave up on him. She always tried to help, tried to help talk things through, as she knew Nick was a good person deep inside. Maybe it's the same for Tom. Nick really appreciates Lill as he sees her as the supportive older sister he never had. Grett knows she's on the bottom of the team, as it just requires Nick siding with Dan and Miriam to send her home. So she needs to get Nick. On her side first. The relationship is similar to her own with Gabby, mainly just Nick going on and on about useless stuff while Grett pretends to listen, and she doesn't really care about his stuff. However, one conversation sticks out to Grett. And it's the only conversation with Nick she can really remember, and she doesn't know why. Nick brings up his troubles with his parents and how they seem to think so little of him, as if he can't do anything by himself. He laughs, he just doesn't really see much. I don't know. He laughs it off, as he's told many people. He doesn't really think much of this conversation. However, this sentence touches Grett as she starts to get teary-eyed. Nick asks her about this, but Grett yells at him, telling him to shut up before storming off. Also, I probably should have had them together. Oops. Yeah, they're having a conversation. Not anymore, but it's fine. I don't know why I have this accent. So, I'm sorry. Okay, on to today's challenge. It has one member of each team tied up to a giant wheel, while two other members turn pulleys that will cause the wheel to rotate. And when the person on the wheel is under the water, they must collect water in their mouth and spit it out into a container. And after you've filled the container, a bag with blindfold, I can't talk, will be released, and then one member of each team will guide their team to giant puzzle pieces. And when they have all their puzzle pieces, they can start putting their puzzle together. The first team to do so will win immunity. Yay! Fiore goes on the wheel for purple team as she's the smallest. Meanwhile, Lill and Jake are gonna pull the pulleys because they're probably the strongest on their team. I don't know. We don't know who's stronger between Jake and Ellie. I mean, I think Jake would be more enthusiastic to pull the pulleys. I don't know why I'm getting so detailed into who's pulling the pulleys. It doesn't really matter, but I think Jake and Lill will pull the pulleys. And meanwhile, for the Cyan team, Drew goes on the wheel thing, because he's also the smallest on his team. and it's just easier for the smallest person to go on the wheel. Um, Meanwhile, Grett, uh, along with probably Miriam, pull the pulleys. Okay. So while pulling the pulleys, Jake and Lill start talking again, and it's basically just friendly talk. Ellie notices this and starts to worry, as Fiore would definitely lose a tiebreaker against either of them, and that's going to put her on the bottom of the team again. While pulling the pulleys, Miriam warns Grett to not try any funny business. Grett acts dumb, pretending to not know what she means, but Miriam isn't buying it, as she notices Grett trying to talk to Nick and trying to talk Nick into an alliance. Grett doesn't hold back anymore, simply just saying that she has the numbers and there's nothing the old hag can do. Both teams finish at a pretty much like even point. They're pretty close, as Fiore was terrible at holding water originally, and Grett was really aggressive with the pulleys, not allowing Drew to collect enough water. So both teams are kind of neck and neck. Lill guides her team in the next section of the challenge. Let me just get her there. As she's used to giving orders as a Girl Scouts leader, and Dan guides his team because the pieces are heavy, and it's Dan. He's like really weak. He can't do anything right because it's Dan. And Purple are clearly going to win. They have so many stronger and better communicating people. I mean, Fiore and Lill might have a conflict, but they both want to win the challenge. I don't think they're really gonna let that get in the way. The Purple team are obviously going to win this challenge. Dan claims to be really good at puzzles, but when actually putting his skills to the test, he fails his team miserably. But putting the puzzle together completely wrong, meaning Teal go to elimination. So I can put Purple down here. There we go. Before the vote, Miriam gathers Dan and Drew together in a final attempt to save the team from Grett's reign. Drew decides to agree to the plan to vote off Grett, but in a confessional says he's really unsure and he doesn't know what he's going to do tonight. He's torn. He's a torn little boyo. Look at him right there. Yeah, okay, well, actually, it would be more... Okay, wait. Oh my god, look, Dance the Swing vote. Okay. At elimination, Trevor reads out the votes. First vote, Grett. Second vote, Miriam. Third vote, Grett. Fourth vote, Miriam. That's 2 votes Grett, 2 votes Miriam. The final vote and 6th person voted out of Disventure camp is... Whoa. Miriam. Miriam and Dan are shocked, and Miriam scuffs at Nick and Drew, referring to them as Grett's little minions. She then walks out, at least glad to be able to relax at the motel. In a confessional, Drew holds up a sign saying he couldn't vote for Grett. Grett is an easy target when they reach the merge, and letting Miriam and Jake reach the merge could be dangerous because they're a powerful duo. He's willing to do whatever he can do if it means he can win the money. Then he doesn't have to worry anymore about all the bridges he's burning. And look at this, we have the merge. Oh my god. So our merge cast, looking a little bit different to the canon version. Yeah, actually, it's looking quite a lot different, actually. We have Dan, Drew, Lill, and Nick here instead of Alec, Tom, Gabby, and Miriam. Yeah, a pretty different merge cast. Okay, this episode starts with Dan confronting Drew. Let me just get... Actually, they're still on their teams. Let me split them into teams, actually. Oh, crap, what did I do? Wait, I forgot who was on... Well, actually, okay, so Nick was on... No, that's Lill. Nick was on this team. There, these are the teams. Okay, just pretend they're split. Actually, wait, let me just... There, look, they're on their team. They're on their same teams. Okay, the episode starts with Dan confronting Drew. Let me get them here. Oh, they're already there. Perfect. About last night's elimination, and Drew tells him he was only thinking about them and their future in this game. They never would have made it to the end with Miriam, and you know, being yeah, they never would have made it to the end with Miriam. I'm sorry, I'm a bad talker. Drew simply wait. Sorry. Dan pauses for a bit and then asks Drew who he plans to vote off next. Drew simply replies with Nick, of course, and with that, Dan walks off. Drew then has a confessional asking why it's so hard for Dan to understand that this is the best strategically this is the best strategical move for them. He doesn't love Grett's attitude either, but it's the best to keep her around. Dan then has a confessional saying that Miriam was right. Drew really is under Grett's control. Trevor then announces the merge, along with the campers moving into the newly built cabins. Oh my god, we can put them all on merge now. Yay! Okay. Lill and Nick reunite and they share with each other. And they share with each other? Oh. And they share with each other their new allies. Sorry. Okay, well, let's restart that. Lill and Nick, they're reuniting, they're happy, and they share with each other their new allies. In Jake and Grash, because Lill got really close with Jake, and now that Miriam's not made the merge, they're Jake's basically she's basically Jake's number one ally, and Nick also shares Grash because him and Grash are allies because he's under Grett's control. Basically, just Gabby 2.0. Okay. So Nick has the idea of rebuilding their four-person alliance, and Lill agrees, as the other four don't seem to get along too well, being Fiore, Ellie, Drew, Dan. Ellie and Fiore know they're on the bottom of the merge, so they devise a plan for Fiore to trick Dan, Drew, and Jake into thinking Lill and Nick want to make an old purple team alliance. And as for Grett, they decide to work with her, as they know her old team weren't too fond of her, and she could be useful to them. So Ellie asks Fiore to join their alliance, which she agrees to, as she knows Dan is gunning for her. So now Grett is a part of this three-person alliance. Meanwhile, Fiore spreads rumors about Lill and Nick around to Dan, Jake, and Drew, which they believe because Fiore, she's 6, so obviously they're all going to believe them. Jake is a little hesitant to, buy into, the plan with Lill, because, Lill and Jake are kind of friendly, but, he's Jake, so obviously he's going to fall for everything anyone tells him, because, his whole character is gullible. You could say it says gullible on the ceiling, and Jake would look up at the ceiling. That's how gullible Jake is. So yeah, Dan, Jake, and Drew all believe Fiore's plans because, she's 6. She wouldn't lie, right? It's Fiore. Okay, now on to the challenge. The contestants have to answer questions about each other, and then they must guess the most voted answer. If you answer correctly, you can take a life from someone else. Everyone has 3 lives. So the person who has the most amount of lives, or the person who's still alive at the end. I mean, we're not killing people off, but, if you saw the episode, you know, okay? Fiore comes up with the same strategy as the original, getting the questions wrong on purpose to not make any enemies. The first question is, who would never survive out here alone? And this answer is the same as canon Fiore. Jake, Dan, Lill, and Nick all get this right and can take lives. So Dan takes a life from Lill, Nick takes a life from Jake takes one from Nick, and Lill takes one from Dan. So they all took lives from each other. The next question is, who would spend $1 million in less than a month? And the answer for this one is Jake, because it's Jake. Nick, Lill, Dan, and Drew get this one correct. Nick takes a life from Dan takes a life from Nick, Drew takes a life from Lill, and Lill takes the final life off Dan. Meaning Dan is out of the game in literally 2 rounds. Oh my god, Dan, you're so unlikable. Nick is at 1 life, and Lill and Jake are both at 2. Everyone else is at 3. The next question is, who is the most trustworthy? The answer for this one is obviously Fiore, because, she's a 6-year-old girl. She wouldn't do anything wrong. Also, I should probably order them, and who has the most lives. Dan's out of the game. I'm going to put people who get out over here so it's easier. Nick has 1 life. Lill and Jake have 2 lives each, and then these 4 here have 3 lives. So the next one, who's the most trustworthy? Answer is Fiore. Drew's the only person who gets this one right, and he takes a life from Lill, putting her at 1 life with Nick. Lill then finally says something. She's like, bro, why are you guys targeting us? You terrible people. The next question is, who is least trustworthy? And the answer to this one is obviously Grett, because it's Grett. Lill, Drew, and Jake all get this one right. Lill takes a life from Drew, finally putting him down to 2. Drew takes a life from Lill, and Jake takes a life from Nick, meaning Lill and Nick are out of the game. There we go. Okay. And also Drew and Jake, are both on 2 lives, and everyone else is on 3. This also means that the other 3 need to start getting the answers correct, because Dan and Drew would never vote against each other. The next question is, who wouldn't you like to see win the money? And Grett is the answer, because everyone hates her. Fiore, Ellie, and Drew all get this one correct. Fiore takes a life from Jake, Ellie takes 1 from Drew, and Drew takes 1 from Ellie, meaning Jake is out. Drew is down to 1 life, and Ellie is on 2. So I guess there we go. 3, 2, 1. The next question is, who is dressed the worst at camp? And the correct answer to this one is Lill. People don't appreciate her clothing. And after she finds out her answer, she says people don't appreciate practical clothing. Everyone gets this answer correct, and Grett takes a life from Drew. Drew takes 1 from Ellie. Drew takes... Okay, sorry. Grett takes a life from Drew. Drew takes 1 from Ellie, and the Alliance agrees to let Fiore win immunity, as Lill and Nick are gunning for her. So Fiore takes a life from Grett, along with Ellie taking 1 from Grett, meaning Drew is out. Ellie and Grett have a life each, and Fiore has 3 lives. The final question is, who never shuts up? The answer to this one is Grett. Once again, everyone hates Grett. Fiore and Ellie both get this one right. Ellie takes Grett's final life, and Fiore takes Ellie's final life. Meaning Fiore has 1 immunity, so we're going to get everyone back here. And Fiore has immunity. Before elimination, both groups of Nick and Lill and Fiore and Ellie, let me just get them here. Fiore used to Ellie, and then Nick, Lill, there. Go to Greek Grash. Oh my god, Greek Grash, oh my god. Sorry. Okay. Both groups of Nick and Lill and Fiore and Ellie go to Greek Grash to discuss the vote. Obviously, there's a lot of tension between Lill and Fiore, but Grett yells at everyone, telling them to all shut up. It would be best for all of them if they voted together. That way, everyone is in their 5-person kind of alliance, but also not kind of alliance, is safe. Everyone hesitantly agrees, but then Nick asks them who they're going to vote, and Grett lights up with an evil smirk. Lill then has a confessional saying she's not really sure about this alliance, as she thought that she was going into the merge with a 4-person alliance with herself, Nick, Grett, and Jake, but now everything is turned on her in less than a second. At elimination, Derek reveals the votes, like he does originally, because, he wants to cause drama. Dan votes for Nick. Actually, I should probably look at Dan votes for Nick, saying he went crazy in today's challenge. Jake also votes for Nick, saying this is for targeting them in today's challenge. Drew votes for Nick and then holds up a sign saying, sorry. So, oh shoot. Sorry, so that's 3 votes for Nick. Nick votes for Dan, saying he's only doing this because he can't vote for Fiore. Lill votes for Dan, also saying she wishes she could vote for Fiore. Ellie votes for Dan, saying this alliance could help her win the game. Grett votes for Dan, saying she's so bloody tired. I'm so sorry. After having to act nice all day, this vote is strictly personal. Dan, you shouldn't have crossed me. And then Fiore finally votes for Dan, saying everything played out like she had planned. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, exposing herself, and also everyone else exposed their alliance. Dan is then pronounced the eliminated in a 5-3 vote. Drew walks Dan out, apologizing for not helping him eliminate Grett, as maybe if he did, Dan would still be here. Dan hushes him up, saying they can't change the past. It's just important Drew goes and wins. And then Drew promises Dan he will. So, Dan, you are voted out. No one likes you. Oh, Dan. Just look at him. Who would like Dan? Look at him. Ugh. Sorry. Look at that. Yeah, he's just over. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just can't get over it. Okay, this next episode. The episode starts with Lill and Nick actually feeling hopeful for once that Fiore being exposed could put an end to her game. Actually, I should probably get them here. Okay, so Lill and Nick, they're bad talking Fiore, as usual. I mean, Fiore kind of deserves it, but they're bad talking Fiore, saying, Fiore being exposed could put an end to her game. It then cuts to Grett, Fiore, and Ellie, and they have the same scene in canon with Fiore encouraging Grett to ditch her parents and not care what they think. She should win for herself. And to Ellie, she says that it's pretty pathetic that she thinks money will solve all of her issues. Ellie is caught pretty off guard by this and asks Fiore to elaborate. Fiore tells Ellie to stop holding it in. She can tell Ellie needs the money for more than bills and fashion school. Ellie then opens up about her parents, saying she needs the money for them and her family. They're depending on her to make money for the family. Also, I should probably have these guys. I'm sorry. I'm so bad at this. She tells them that her family's depending on her to make money for the family. Fiore pauses for a second before asking if her family is piggybacking off of her. Ellie stumbles for a bit before realizing that they kind of are. She elaborates, saying her family doesn't work, it's just her. In fact, she's always dreamed of going to fashion school, but she's not even sure if she'll be able to afford it after she has to pay off her family's home, and her parents have already made her a list of things to buy them when she wins. Mostly clothes, handbags, aftershave, gift cards, etc. Fiore stops Ellie and gives her a similar speech to Grett, telling her if she wins, she should spend that money on things she wants, not give it all to her spoiled, do-nothing parents. That gives Fiore an idea. She asks Ellie and Grett to name the first thing they'd spend the money on. Grett asks Fiore when she got so sappy, and Fiore curses her out and tells her to just answer the question. Fiore says she would obviously buy a mansion and hire a bunch of slaves to do her every bidding. Ellie laughs and says she would obviously go to college for fashion school, along with maybe asking some girl she met while on Disventure camp out on a date. And then in the confessional confirms she's talking about Gabby, as even though they spent a little time on the show together, she felt a spark with her, an unexplainable spark. Grett giggles before thinking for a bit, before saying she always hoped to win to prove herself to her parents. She never really thought of what she would do with the money. Fiore says, "Oh, come on, there isn't anything you'd want to do with the money." Grett thinks again, before saying she's always kept her thoughts and emotions inside herself all her life. She'd love to be able to write stories with messages and lessons she's learned since being on the show. Fiore then has a confessional saying, yeah, enough with the mushy stuff. She doesn't care about Ellie or Grett, but in the very slim chance where somehow she doesn't win, she wouldn't totally hate it if they won. They've got cool futures ahead. She then catches herself and wonders if she really just said that. We then cut to Lill and Nick again, and then they approach Drew and Jake, and say they need to work together. Next vote. They can't let the villains take control. they all agree to discuss who their target should be, as they don't trust Ellie or Fiore. Like Lill and Nick don't trust Ellie or Fiore to be there for them. Sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. So these four here, I'll discuss who their target should be going into the next vote, and we don't get told any of that because suspense. Okay, now on to the challenge. It obviously starts off the same with everyone being knocked out by sleeping gas and going into VR. This time, Lill and Nick go to explore the outside world, and while outside, Nick gets attacked by a bunch of zombies, but Lill manages to get the zombies off of him, but not without getting bit herself. Then Jake has the then Jake then Jake has the then Jake has the manages. What? Oh, sorry about that. I read that part wrong in my script. Oh my god, I hate myself. Um, then Jake has the bright idea to cut off her arm because it's Jake and he's just so smart. And they achieve nothing but a one-armed Lill. Then the zombies attack the cabins, so everyone runs out of the cabin, and Lill gets the cool zombie skin this time. And then when she turns into a zombie, Nick tries going back for her, but Drew and Jake drag him away. And it's at this point that everyone splits off into different groups. And it's pretty obvious: Ellie, Fiore, Grett, and Jake, Drew, Nick. So it's basically boys against girls, and Lil's pretty much dead at this point, so I'm going to put her up here like in the last one. She's not out, she's just dead. That sounds so bad. She's out of the challenge, okay? Then we have the same time skip as the original. A week passes by, and we get to see how everyone has been doing in the zombie apocalypse. Nick is absolutely miserable and doesn't see a reason to keep on living without Lill. Jake and Drew have been trying to convince him to survive for her, but he's starting to lose hope. They then hear Fiore screaming and go to find her, and she pulls the same scheme as the original, telling them Ellie and Grett were attacked by the zombies. Nick suggests just leaving her to rot, which Jake happily agrees to, but Drew convinces them that she's a 6-year-old girl and she's injured. She won't cause them any harm. He says that even in the zombie apocalypse, it's important to do the right thing. Then they realize it was a trap, and Ellie and Grett are stealing their supplies. Ellie admits to feeling a little guilty about stealing the guy's supplies, but all's fair in love and war. Nick manages to catch Fiore using some skills he never would have been able to pull off successfully before the show, but Lill has really helped him harness his inner adventurer. And using that, he catches Fiore and knocks Fiore out, and with a knife in his hand, asks Fiore if she has any last words. In which Fiore says, "Yeah, go to hell," and with that, shoots right at Nick's heart. But Drew last second pushes Nick out of the way, taking the shot. Nick struggles to process that Drew is dead, but he's determined to avenge Lill, so throws his knife right at Fiore, but last second, Grett throws herself in front of Fiore, taking a knife to her chest. Ellie then shows up, and realizing she's outnumbered, realizing he is outnumbered, Nick retreats. Fiore seems, for the first time ever, emotional, and asks Grett why she just did that. And in her dying words, Grett says, "Family doesn't leave each other behind." Ellie then says she hates to interrupt Fiore's mourning, but they need to go. Fiore pushes her tears back into her eyes, not wanting to appear weak, and offers a nod. So Ellie picks her up and carries her away, and as Fiore looks back at Drew and Grett's lifeless bodies, a single tear falls down her face. Okay, they're dead now. Cue sick montage of Ellie and Fiore raiding and stealing supplies, fighting zombies, and saving each other's lives, like Grett and Fiore did originally. Then they have an emotional conversation, with Ellie trying not to get too emotional, but saying the advice Fiore gave her about her family a while back was pretty cool, and it's opened up her eyes to a new world. Fiore tells her to not sweat it, but if she wants to tell that to their faces, she has a plan, and Ellie responds with a smirk. Um, while wait, oh sorry, while Fiore distracts Jake and Nick, Ellie can raid their camp and search for a map to the nearest town. So Fiore sneaks upon Jake and Nick and shoots Jake in the back. She then runs off. Oh, well, Jake's dead. Sorry. So Fiore, just kills Jake pretty easily, and she then runs off as Nick follows her, allowing Ellie to go into their little tent and check for the map. And then cue an epic battle music, rain, and a thunderstorm as Fiore and Nick start their final battle. Nick attempts to swing at Fiore, but Fiore dodges and climbs up his back and inserts a knife right into his back. And in Nick's final moments, Fiore laughs as she says, "I guess wrinkles didn't teach you well enough." Ellie then runs over to her, saying she couldn't find the map, but is left speechless as she sees Fiore with an evil smile covered in Nick's blood as she stares down at Nick's deceased body. Ellie struggles to find words and stutters as she says she couldn't find the map. It must not be here. And Fiore smugly says, "I know." Ellie is confused and starts to ask her why she led her here, but is then caught off guard as she turns around to see Fiore holding a gun that is pointed right towards her face. And Fiore apologizes, saying she needs this immunity, before blowing Ellie's brains out, winning immunity, and then the contestants are informed that it was just VR, and Lill has never been happier to have two arms. But Ellie is pissed at Fiore, who simply says they were exposed last night. She has to do anything she can to win. Elimination time! Yay! Everyone walks Pato? What? What does that say? I don't know. We're just gonna say everyone walks to elimination either thrilled or scared, as they're all pretty sure Evelyn's gone. Now time for Trevor to read the votes. First vote. Oh wait, shoot. Everyone's not dead anymore. Wait. Okay. First vote. Ellie. Ooh. Second vote. Ellie. That's 2 votes Ellie. Next vote. Lill. Lill. That's 2 votes Lill. 2 votes Ellie. Lill. That's 3 votes Lill. Ellie. We're tied. That's 3 votes Ellie. 3 votes Lill. 1 vote left. 8th person voted out of Disventure camp. Ooh. Ellie. No, Ellie, no. If you couldn't tell from my profile picture, I love Ellie. Before Ellie leaves, she thanks Fiore and Grett for helping her open her eyes. She swears to take what they said to heart and not let her parents take control of her life. Ellie walks out of the camp with a bittersweet feeling and tears falling from her cheeks. But then she is greeted by Gabby. Oh, I should probably get Gabby. She's then greeted by Gabby. Hi, Gabby. Who tells her she's noticed a problem at the motel and needs someone's help, someone she can trust. Ellie's face lights up with a smile, and the two enter the bus of losers and head to the motel. So I know Gabby's returned, but she has to go back to her original elimination place. And yeah, Ellie's out, but also side plot. Nice. Okay, this episode starts with Grett and Fiore strategizing like Alec and Fiore originally, trying to figure out who they can get to flip. Nick and Lill obviously still hate Fiore's guts, and Jake is probably still mad at Grett for taking out Tom and Miriam, which leaves Drew. Fiore's face lights up with a smile, and she tells Grett to leave it to her. Then it cuts to Drew, Lill, Nick, and Jake, all playing sorts of guessing games, Pictionary, Hangman, etc., with Drew's notes. Fiore has a disturbed look on her face before asking to speak with him. Before Drew leaves, Lill grabs Drew's arm and whispers into his ear to not trust Fiore, and to remember she's a very good persuader and strategist. Drew offers a nod in response before walking after Fiore. So Fiore and Drew. Yeah. Fiore tells him that she remembers him from Cyan Team in the early days. He was the only person who got to know her for who she is. He was the only person who didn't vote her off that first day. Drew has a stern look on his face as he holds up a sign saying, "Yeah, it was a real shocking. It was real shocking to find out the one person I connected with and could relate to was some sick demon child." Fiore has a confused look on her face, and she repeats "relate to" in a confused tone. Drew panics a bit as he quickly writes and holds up um, another piece of paper saying, "Well, yeah, we're the only children on the show." Fiore reluctantly says, "Okay," and then carries on saying she truly did like him. She got to see a brief scene of his chaotic side, and they could be like that again. Drew looks down at the floor, and there's a few seconds of awkward silence before Fiore tells him to please just think about it. There's no way he could be any of the adults in the finale. They gotta stick together. Drew looks back up at her and smiles before writing another note saying, "I'll think about it." Fiore then smiles and walks off. The camera then cuts to Lill and Nick, spying on them from behind a bush. As Fiore walks off, Lill has a stressed look on her face as she tells Nick that they need a plan. Nick seems confused and isn't picking up what she's putting down, so Lill explains to him that if Fiore gets Drew on her side, they could get screwed in a tie. They need to flip Grett to their side today and fast, otherwise Fiore could cause a tie, which could send one of them or Jake home. They'll get screwed, but if they get Grett on their side to get out Fiore to get to the finale to win the money. Nick looks even more confused than before, so Lill sighs and simply tells him they need to get Grett against Fiore. Nick's face lights up with a smirk as he says, "Easy," before walking off, only to turn around a few seconds later and asking Grett, or asking Lill, how they can do that. Lill face palms before saying they will have to play a little dirty and tell some lies, but it will all be worth it when one of them will win the money. Lill then has a confessional saying she really hates to lie and manipulate Grett, but she's pretty sure it's justified after all Grett's done. The villains have taken a page out of their book by being kind and emotional, so it's time the heroes take a page out of their book by being ruthless and manipulative. Now on to the challenge. Nick and Lill know they can't let others win immunity, so they decide to split up the obstacles. When Lill gets to her first obstacle, here we go. She tells she runs into Grett. She sees this as the perfect opportunity to flip Grett to her side. She tells Grett she overheard Fiore and Drew. Oh, I should probably get Grett over here. She tells Grett she overheard Fiore and Drew talking this morning. They were making final two deals, saying they know they stand no chance against the other adults. So after her and Nick are gone, they're saying they're going to blindside Grett and take Jack to the finale and then work together to defeat him. Grett laughs, saying there's no way she's going to believe her. Lill tells Grett to think about it. It makes sense. And ask yourself, has Fiore really been the most trustworthy? Grett thinks about all the schemes Fiore's managed to pull off, but also thinks about the conversations she had with Fiore, where Fiore was the first person who ever made Grett feel valid. A fit of rage then comes over Grett as she's angry. She's angry at Lill for putting doubts in her head. She's angry at Fiore for being so untrustworthy. She's angry at the challenge she's doing as she can't stay on the she can't stay on the steps to reach the medal, and she keeps slipping off or falling on the mud. And she's angry at herself for not being able to decide who to trust. But then Lill hops across the stumps in one try, grabs two medals, hops back, and hands one to Grett. Grett is pretty shocked and tells Lill she'll think about it. Lil's face lights up with a warm smile as she runs off to her next obstacle. Meanwhile, Nick reaches the tightrope, but finds a note saying he can search for an immunity idol instead of completing the challenge. Then Grett finds him, and Nick tells her about his immunity totem. Grett really feels like she can trust Nick after the time they spent together pre-merge. and she asks him if he really thinks Fiore would betray her. Nick tries to lie, like Lill told him, but he just can't bring himself to do it. So gives her a sad frown and shrugs his shoulders and says he wasn't there for the conversation. Sorry, so he doesn't know. Grett seems upset as she continues moving. Nick then finds the immunity totem after digging for a while and should be happy, but really he's devastated with himself. Fiore and Drew then decide to stick together to do the challenges. Cute scenes of Fiore on Drew's shoulders so she can shoot the vase with her bow and arrow, and Drew grabbing Fiore's hand before she slips off a stump into the mud. Cute scenes, you're welcome. Um, okay. Grett meets up with Drew and with Fiore and Drew and gets a little worried as she sees them hanging out so much. And she's a little bit worried that what Lill said is true, that Fiore and Drew are gonna ditch her. Uh, um, she goes to ask them about the votes, and Fiore tells her they'll probably vote for Lill or Nick. She doesn't know. Yeah, she'll tell her when she's decided. Fiore and Drew then start to walk off, but Grett yells, "No," which catches them both off guard. Grett tells them that she's tired of being their dog and that they can trust to stay loyal to its owner. She wants to be treated like an actual person in this alliance. Fiore rolls her eyes and says she's being dramatic, which causes Grett to hold up the middle finger and curse them out. She then says they're voting for Jake tonight. That's final, and she expects to be treated like a human being from now on. Grett then walks off, leaving Fiore and Drew speechless, and all Drew can do is hold up a sign saying Queen on it. It's then announced that Lill has collected all the medals and has won immunity. Later in the day, Nick tells Lill about his immunity totem. They now have their power back, and they can win this game. That night, Lill, Nick, and Jake are sleeping, and then Grett tells Drew and Fiore about Nick's immunity totem, and if he uses it on Jake, they're screwed. Fiore tells Grett that's why she's going to turn Jake against Nick. Grett angrily asks, "Why me?" And Fiore tells her that they're going along with her plan tonight and listening to her, so she's got to do some of the work too. Grett angrily agrees and says she'll talk to Jake tomorrow. The next morning, Grett finds Jake, who isn't happy to see her, and she tells him to hear her out. I should probably. Oh my god, I'm so bad at this. Okay, yeah. The next morning, Grett finds Jake, and who isn't happy to see her, but she just tells him to hear her out. She tells Jake about Nick's immunity idol and his plans. And his plan is to use the idol on Lill tonight, so that Fiore, Drew, and her own votes don't count. Then, himself and Lill are going to vote for Jake, so he's eliminated. She overheard them discussing it this morning. Jake is confused, and I'm realizing that it kind of sounds confusing too. I'm gonna try and explain this better. So basically, Grett finds Jake by himself, and she tells him that Nick found an immunity totem that Jake wasn't informed of, and he's going to use the immunity totem on Lill, so that expecting that these three, Nick, Grett, Fiore, and Drew, are going to vote for Lill, so their votes won't count. Jake's gonna vote for like Grett or Fiore or whoever. And then Nick and Lill are going to vote for Jake, so Jake's out in a 2-1 vote because these 3 votes got cancelled. That's basically what I'm saying here. Jake is confused and a little wary, but Grett tells him he can't stand that him being Nick can't stand him and doesn't care if he loses, as long as he doesn't have to be around Jake any longer. Jake feels heartbroken that no one wants him around, and no one ever truly liked him, as he thought that he could count on Grett or on Lill, sorry. But it turns out she doesn't like him either. Grett sighs and tells Jake that she doesn't mind him and would be down to be his friend, but he has to switch his vote to Nick tonight for that to happen. Jake looks at the ground and says he'll think about it. Later that day, Nick finds Jake and asks him to talk, as he wants to tell him about the totem. But Jake tells him to shove it, and he doesn't want to talk to him. He also doesn't want to hear any more lies from him, Jake just being his usual self. And he also says he's not going to be anyone's pawn again. Nick then finds Lill and tells her everything Jack said, and Nick blows up in anger. Lill tries to get him to calm down, so she suggests they go fishing so Nick can de-stress, which he smiles and agrees to. So they're going fishing, nice. Um, when sorry, I can't talk. when when they get down to the lake, Nick tells Lill everything about his problems with Jake, saying he's so gullible and believes everything he's told, which is true. Lill smiles and tells Nick he's learning what having siblings are like. Nick has a confused look on his face as he says he's an only child. Lill says exactly. He doesn't have experience with siblings, or sibling figures. You can fight, yell, and tear each other apart, but at the end of the day, you love them no matter what, and they'll always stay loyal to you, even if you have to remind them of that first. For example, she remembers back when she was younger, she got into a massive fight with her little sister about the most ridiculous thing. It got to the point that her sister built a giant Lego wall in their room so they didn't have to see each other. Nick curiously asks what she did about it, and Lill laughs as she tells him she got a hammer and knocked that wall down, and she was able to teach her sister about loyalty and maturity, and she felt so proud as an older sister to teach her that. Nick laughs and then thanks Lill as he grabs her hand, and they look into each other's eyes, only to be cut off by an announcement, telling everyone to meet at Elimination. But before rowing back, Lill steals a kiss from Nick, and they then row back while laughing. Okay, now on to the elimination. While voting, we see Nick vote for Fiore, as he says Lill has convinced him to give Jake a second chance, and with Fiore out of the way, that'll be easier. Then we see Grett vote for Jake, as she says she feels a little guilty for lying to Jake, but as long as it doesn't hurt Lill or Nick, she's okay with it. Plus, it's not like anything she said was a lie. No one wants to get close with an insecure, immature, gullible weirdo like Jake. Then we don't see anyone else's votes, and Trevor reads out the votes. But Fiore cuts him off and says she wants to talk to Nick, which confuses Grett. Fiore then goes on to expose Grett's plans with Jake, like she did originally to Ellie. Nick is fuming as Lill tries to calm him down. Jake is begging for forgiveness, and Grett is stressed out as Jake yells at her, and Fiore and Drew are sat back enjoying life, though Drew does feel a little guilty. Fiore then tells Nick that Grett exposed his immunity statue to them, and tells him that herself, Grett, and Drew voted for Jake. So if Nick doesn't use the totem on Jake, he's gone tonight. Nick is fuming mad, but Lill tells him to think rationally and remember what she told him on the boat. Drew tries talking to Grett, but she looks away in disgust, saying that they had a deal and they broke her trust, something that isn't easy to fix. Nick then stands up and uses the totem on Jake reluctantly, falling into Fiore's trap. Trevor then finally gets to read the votes after he had to wait for like 10 hours for Jake and Nick's dinky little fight to stop. First vote, Jake. Doesn't count. Next vote, Fiore. Fiore. That is 2 votes Fiore. Next vote, ooh, Nick. Everyone is shocked as Nick's first vote is revealed. Nick. That is 2 votes Nick, 2 votes Fiore, 1 vote left. 9th person voted out of Disventure camp. Ooh, who's it gonna be? I wonder. Nick. Nick then walks out yelling at Jake, saying one thing Grett said was true. He can't stand Jake. Nick then flips Jake off as he walks out, with Grett and Lill following him. Grett immediately starts apologizing, saying she didn't know Fiore and Drew were going to do that, and she's so sorry. And but then Nick cuts her off by hugging her and saying that he learned today. And says he learned today that he has to be more mature and forgive when someone makes a mistake. As he looks at Lill, Grett then thanks him and steps aside as Lill hugs Nick and says she'll do everything in her power to win for him. The two then kiss before Nick is taken away on the bus of losers, with Grett and Lill waving goodbye to him. Drew has the final confessional saying he feels really guilty about what he did, but it kind of felt fun to be on the winning side and to know what the others don't. Besides, he needs that $1,000,000 more than anyone if he's going to help her. The episode then ends at the motel with Gabby showing Ellie what Jensen's been doing, and Ellie looking shocked before saying she knows just the person to help. So Nick is out because Jake is a stupid idiot, as usual. Okay, this next episode starts with Drew and Fiore attempting to talk to Grett, but she is having none of it. After they betrayed her and voted out Nick the other night. Drew attempts to reason with her. He holds up a note saying, think about it. If you go to the end with Lill and Jake, you're sure to lose. But think about your chances against a 15 and 6-year-old. Grett thinks for a bit, saying she'll think about it. Oh, and they should probably start plotting ways to keep Jake from winning immunity. Grett then has a confessional saying, after being hated on, thrown to the sidelines, and a pawn in this game, it feels good to take down the queen and be the swing vote. She never really considered the chances of her actually winning, but her dreams of becoming a famous book author could actually come true. Fiore then has a confessional screeching like a dinosaur, saying they had to blindside Nick last night, as if they voted out Jake like Grett wanted, Grett was sure to flip to Lill and Nick after he was gone, but now they might just be doomed anyway. She then screeches again before asking why everyone can't be as stupid as they were 10 days ago. Grett then runs into Jake, who starts roasting her for playing with his mind. Grett rolls her eyes and says she's not the gullible idiot who voted for Nick last night, which quiets Jake down. Grett then says, besides, you shouldn't be roasting me right now. I have the fate of your game in my hands. Lill then shows up and groans as she says she's right, and then tells Grett that Fiore and Drew may be easier opponents in the finale, but they aren't trustworthy. If they see Grett as too big a threat, they'll find a way to ditch her in the blink of an eye. Grett thinks about this to herself for a second before walking away, smirking to herself. Lill then has a confessional saying that even though Grett was unintentionally part of the reason Nick got out, she's found a Sharpie and highlighted unintentionally in her mind. She likes Grett as a person. She just made a mistake, which everyone makes a lot of. But she needs to make sure Grett knows they're still on good terms, as her place in the game is in Grett's hands. She's come so close, and she's not going to give up now. Not when that $1,000,000 is waiting for her. Now on to the challenge. Everyone gets a backpack, which contains either batteries or a flashlight. Then they'll enter a completely pitch black cave and will need to work together to light up a flashlight. The first to find the exit and make it out wins immunity. They have to work together, but only one person can win immunity at the end. As soon as everyone enters the cave, a giant scorpion attacks them. This causes them all to get split up. Drew and Fiore stay together, but Lill, Grett, and Jake are all alone. When everyone opens up their backpack, they find either batteries or a flashlight. Drew and Fiore have batteries, and Lill, Jake, and Grett all have flashlights. Lill hears sounds and noises in the distance, so she excitedly runs through the caves and to find whoever it is, only to be left horrified to see Jake getting held up by a scorpion. She obviously frees him by bashing into the scorpion with all of her might. She then yells at Jake to run, which he does, leaving Lill to battle the scorpion. Grett then finds Lill and obviously saves her from the scorpion by taking out all the rage she's had bottled up from these last few days on it. The two then escape, and Grett Lill then tells Grett, at the time she was a Girl Scout when sorry, ignore that last sentence. I said I skipped a line by accident. Oh my god, I'm so bad at this. I hate myself. So Grett asks Lill how they're supposed to find the exit without a proper flashlight. Lill tells Grett about the time she was a Girl Scout when she was younger. She went on many trips in the caves, and occasionally still does with her Girl Scouts team. She found many different ways of finding her way in the dark. Fiore and Drew come up with a plan. One of them will make sure Jake doesn't win immunity, and the other will find Grett and convince her to vote with them tonight. They then split up, and Fiore goes to find Jake, and when she does, which she does. Sorry, I'm so bad at reading. And they put their batteries and flashlight together to make a working flashlight. Jake proposes voting out Grett at the next elimination, and Fiore is surprised, as she never really considered Grett as a possibility for the next elimination, as she seemed to be controlling the game. Jake tells her all she has to do is let him win immunity. Fiore tells him she'll consider it, and then they continue through the cave, and Fiore has a confessional calling Jake a noob for trusting her. Oh my god, I love her so much. We then cut back to the Losers Motel, where we see that Ellie has talked to Tom, and he's willing to help them with their problem. Gabby expresses her anger and sadness at finding out that Derek and Trevor were exterminating the animals. Because, Ellie loves animals and stuff. Or, no, Gabby, sorry. Ellie comforts her as this is a tough topic for Gabby to talk about. Ellie then says that's why she brought Tom here. She remembered he's a cop. Tom then tells them he's not. Also, I should probably have the camera on them, right? Let's just pretend this is the Losers Motel. Okay. Then as I said, Ellie then says that's why she brought Tom here. She remembered he's a cop. Tom then tells him he's not, though. So Gabby and Ellie start guessing what he is, maybe a ninja or an investigator. Tom then reminds them that he was a special agent, so they get him to investigate the problem. Okay, then that's it. Go back into your elimination places, please. Okay. Meanwhile, back in the cave, Drew finds Grett and signals her to come to talk to him, as he's not trying to not let Lill know he's there. I can't read, I'm sorry. Grett tells Lill she has to go to the toilet real quick, and she goes to speak with Drew. She asks her, who asks her if she's in on the plan. Sorry, my throat's dry. Sure, Lill is a nice person and trustworthy, but there's no way any of them could beat her in the finale. Grett thinks for a bit before saying if Drew and Fiore can stop Jake from winning immunity, he's gone tonight, which Drew gives a thumbs up to. They then hear a noise behind them, and Grett puts Drew's batteries in her flashlight, and they then see a giant scorpion behind them, and they run for their lives. Grett has a confessional saying she wants Jake gone as soon as possible. Then she'll work with Lill to vote off Drew, and then she's in the finale. She just has to figure out what to do from there. Grett then runs back to Lill and gives her the great news, which is that she's found a working flashlight. They then find the ledge and a rope, which means they have to swing across it, and, that's it. Grett goes first and successfully makes it across. Then she throws the rope back to Lill, who also makes it. Lill then laughs as they continue on, which causes Grett to get confused. So Lill explains that it's just nice that she knows that she can trust Grett. As she easily could have left her, but she didn't. It shows that she's really becoming a better person. Grett laughs as she says, "Yeah, I guess so." She then smiles as she's proud of herself and how far she's been able to come. Fiore and Jake continue on in the path. Fiore is a little nervous as she needs a way to make sure Jake doesn't win immunity. Then the perfect opportunity arises. She spots a hole in the distance and pretends the batteries are running out, and then she leads Jake down it, and he falls right into her trap, literally. She then runs off. Meanwhile, Jake lands on top of Lill and Grett, who help him up, and he is not happy to see Grett. Look at him. Look how unhappy he is to see Grett. I should probably have him there. Look how unhappy he is to see Grett. Look at him. Hate Jake. They hear a noise come from the distance. Lill runs ahead to find out what this noise is, leaving Jake and Grett to play out the same scene as canon, but with Grett instead of Ellie. And then Jake has a stupid little talk with himself, bullying her, just being a stupid idiot, roasting her, but she doesn't really care. Drew and Fiore find each other, but there's a wall in between them. So Fiore tells Drew to go for immunity, as they can't let Jake win. So he does. Okay. Then the same scene with Ellie and Jake happens, with Ellie roasting Jake and absolutely destroying him, but this time more sassy, because it's Grett. Lill catches up to them, saying she dealt with the problem. She then has a confessional saying what Grett did to Jake was wrong, but she can't say anything as she needs Grett to stay loyal to her. Because, I didn't really cover it, but Grett, just punched Jake in the face, and, he fell down a flight of stairs. I mean, that didn't really happen, but it basically happened, okay? And then Lill is disappointed in Grett, but she can't say that because she needs Grett to stay loyal to her. Grett then points out that only one of them can win immunity, and Lill thinks for a second before saying Grett can take it. Grett is surprised and asks her why, and Lill tells her that Grett has an opportunity to ditch her, or Grett had an opportunity to ditch her a while back, but she stayed loyal to her. Now it's time for her to do the same. Grett is surprised but thankful. Lill then claims immunity, Grett then claims immunity, and Grett is really excited, but also nervous as she has a big decision. She has a big decision to make. Later that day, Drew talks to Fiore. Oh, they're already there. Drew talks to Fiore. They briefly discuss the vote, and both feel pretty sure Grett will side with them. Drew then asks Fiore. I feel like I say Fiore weird. Do I say Fiore weird? I don't know. Fiore. I don't know. Sorry. What am I doing? Okay, Drew then asks Fiore if she ever feels bad, about being villains. No one likes them. Are they bad people? Fiore is a bit caught off guard, as she's not really good at consoling people, but she tells them she used to think that herself, but then she realized that everyone is capable of good or bad, and everyone has moments where they're villains and heroes. Just think about it, what you're fighting for, and it doesn't feel as bad. Drew then pauses for a while before actually speaking, and he says, "Thank you," while hugging Fiore. Fiore is once again caught very off guard, because, Drew hasn't spoke this entire time, but just stutters as she says, "No problem." Okay, now on to elimination. Everyone cast their votes, and we see Jake vote for Fiore, as he says he wishes he could vote for Grett, but she has immunity, so it has to be Fiore. And then that's it. Trevor then reads the votes. First vote, Jake. That's Grett. Jake. Second vote, Fiore. Fiore. That is 2 votes Fiore, 1 vote Jake. Jake. We're tied. 2 votes Jake, 2 votes Fiore, 1 vote left. The 10th person voted out of Disventure camp. Ooh, place your bets in the comments. It's Jake. That's 3 votes, and that's enough. Then Jake leaves by himself because no one likes him, and he's an immature, gullible idiot. Who would like that? Lill has a confessional saying she really thought she convinced Grett to flip, but the Villains Alliance has somehow pulled through all the way to the end, and she's not afraid to become a villain anymore. The episode ends with Tom calling his old boss and informing him of Jensen, same as canon. Yay. Nice. Jake's out. Finally, we won! Okay. We're getting pretty close. Next episode. This episode starts off with the final 4 getting letters from home. Fiore refuses to read hers and throws it in the fire like the original. Grett sees Fiore do this, shrugs, and then does the same. as soon as she sees that her letter is from her parents. Lil's letter is from her Girl Scouts team, and they wish her luck with the next few days, and they're so proud of her for representing them and coming so far. Meanwhile, Drew's letter is from his mother. He reads through it, who reads through the letter and then begins to panic. Fiore finds him and tells him about her stupid parents and how she threw her letter in the fire, but she's surprised to find Drew crying. She asks him about it, and he just hands her his letter. She reads through it and finds out that Drew's mother is sick and in the hospital. She's been getting worse ever since he left for Disventure camp. Drew starts speaking to her again, and actually speaking, not using his notebook, and he tells her about his selective mutism. And when he was younger, his sister was one of the only people who understood him and who he felt himself with. She died a few years back, and he hasn't been able to let her go or speak to anyone ever since. But Fiore has taught him how to let go of the past, and he can speak, and he can see his sister inside Fiore. Fiore is lost for words, and Drew pulls her in for a hug. And as she's in Drew's arms, a single tear rolls down her face. Meanwhile, Lill then has a confessional saying she's come so far and she has to win now, because her sister would want her to. She's come and the truth is, her sister would want her to be truthful too. The story she told Nick the night of his elimination wasn't the whole truth. Her sister did build a Lego wall in the room, but Lill never built up the courage to knock it down. She left it there and didn't speak to her sister all day or all night. The next day, Lill woke up and wanted to apologize to her sister, as she felt guilty for the argument they got into. But when she went to wake her up, she never did. She had passed in her sleep, and all these years, her death still haunts Lill to this day. If she hadn't been so stubborn to not fix things with her sister, they could have at least ended on good terms. Ever since that day, she's never left an argument without fixing it, because you never know what surprises the universe can bring. Okay, now on to the challenge. On a more lighter note, I know I just dropped two heartbreaking stories to you back to back. Hopefully some people are still here, they haven't left due to sadness. This challenge will be played in pairs. The winning pair will get to choose someone from the losing pair to be eliminated, and they get, then after that it's finale. So basically get to choose who they don't want to go to the finale with. The pairs are Drew and Grett and Lill and Fiore. Fiore lets out a loud groan as she's stuck working with the one person she hates more than her parents. The first challenge is cliff diving into a specific area of the lake. Neither Fiore or Grett can swim, as they revealed in episode 13, even though in this episode Fiore gets thrown into the water and she's able to swim easily. I don't know, it's confusing, okay? DC logic. I mean, it makes a lot more sense than total drama logic, to be fair. Okay. Drew jumps into the water with no problem, but Fiore refuses to jump. Lill decides to take things into her own hands, so she picks Fiore up and throws her into the circle, and then she dives in after her. Lill then has a confessional saying, being a Girl Scouts leader has taught her that everyone has different ways to overcome their fears, and Fiore's way of overcoming her fear is giving her own a taste of her own medicine. Lill says while laughing. Grett seems very troubled as she's contemplating jumping into the water, obviously. She takes a deep breath, but she can't bring herself to do it, which means Fiore and Lill take the first point, as they both jumped into the water and Grett didn't. Grett apologizes to Drew, and then has a confessional saying her family never really brought her on fun family trips away, so she never learned to swim, and is still a little bit ashamed to this day about it. Okay, the second challenge is tug of war, and it's a little hard to decide who would win this one, as Lill and Grett are both carrying for their duos, obviously, because the other two are a 15-year-old and a 6-year-old. But with that being said, I think Drew, being a 15-year-old, is probably much stronger than Fiore. So, she's 6. she's not going to be able to be that strong. So that means Grett and Drew take this point, so we're tied up. And then Fiore still flies off the ledge and hits her head on the like little curb thing because it's funny, okay? I'm gonna keep it. During the break, Fiore yells at Grett, telling her she has to try harder to win these challenges. Grett is confused, so Fiore elaborates, saying she tried so hard to throw the diving challenge, but Grett's silly fear of water meant they got the point, and Lill is one step closer to reaching the finale. After Grett and Drew win, they can vote off Lill and make it to the finale. Grett asks Fiore what makes her so sure Grett will betray Lill, and Fiore responds saying Grett stands a better chance against a 6 and 15-year-old over a skilled Girl Scout leader who basically lives outdoors. She trusts Grett will make the right decision. Then there's the groove with me Trevor scene, but it's unchanged, so there's no need to talk about it. Straight on to their challenge, which is fire making. Fiore has a confessional saying it's like the production are trying to sabotage her. How is she supposed to stop the frickin' Girl Scouts leader from making fire? Lill gets a small flame pretty quickly and tells Fiore to cover it while she gets some more sticks and, tusk and fire making equipment. This gives Fiore the chance to slide Grett and Drew some fire. Fiore smirks as she looks at Grett and Drew as they're starting to pick up the pace and actually starting to get fire, but when she looks back, Lil's fire is gigantic, and they're announced the winner of this round. Fiore then has a confessional, once again, screeching like a dinosaur. The next challenge, and potential final challenge, I don't know, because, Fiore and Lill have 2 points, they just need one more, is climbing to the top of a pole and retrieving a flag. The pole is greased up, so that it's hard to climb it. Neither team is having any luck until Grett lifts Drew onto her shoulders, and Lill and Fiore try to do the same. But with Fiore throwing and just being too short to grab the flag anyway, Grett and Drew get their second point. So the scores are now tied 2-2. So the next point wins. On to the final challenge. The final challenge is holding onto a pole for as long as you can. It seems simple enough. It's hard to explain, okay? And there's really nothing to talk about here because Fiore is obviously going to win because she's the shortest. But the thing is, she doesn't want to win. So Grett drops out first, followed by Lill. And then Fiore drops off on purpose. So Lill doesn't make the finale. Meaning Grett and Drew win and have a guaranteed spot in the final 3. Whoa, look at them. They're so happy. Meaning it's either Lill or Fiore gone tonight. So now on to the difficult decision for for Drew and Grett. They have to decide who to bring to the finale and who to ditch now. Drew apologizes to Lill before saying he wants to bring Fiore to the finale. Lill and Grett are shocked to hear Drew speak for the first time, and Lill has a worried look on her face. Grett stumbles and stutters for a second before sighing and saying she wants to bring Fiore to the finale. Lill is shocked, and Grett is really nervous that she's lost Lill as a friend. But Lill isn't mad, as she knows it was a smart move to take her out, and she respects it. She says goodbye to Drew and Grett, and tells Fiore she hopes she gets everything her karma owes her. Before leaving, and there we have our final 3. Oh my god. Drew, Grett, and Fiore. What? Okay. So, final episode. We're here. We have a winner, runner-up, third place. Who's gonna get what? I don't know. Well, I do know, but you don't know. Okay. The finale episode. This episode starts off with the final 3 sharing their thoughts on their experience on the show. Grett says she's super excited to have come this far. She's in the finale against the 2 youngest people here. She's going to give it her all today, and she might just walk away with $1 million, and her dream of becoming a famous author can finally be fulfilled. Fiore's confessional basically goes the same as canon. She hated being on the show, thought everyone sucked, and is ready to win. Drew is happy he's come this far and says he's not going to give up now, not when his mother is depending on him. He has to do everything for her so she can get better. And then, Derek and Trevor visit the Losers Motel and get the losers the 11 losers' opinions on the finalists. Sorry. Ashley and Will's confessional goes the same, as they both got their same eliminations. They're both mad at Fiore, but are also happy that they can now be together, and maybe they're both. Maybe their eliminations were a blessing in disguise. Lill and Nick also have a joint confessional, and they're both happy with the game that they played, and though they wish they could have made the finale, they're also happy they got to spend their last few days together. Alec is disappointed in himself that he showed off he was such a big target so early on, which is probably why he's sitting in the losers motel. Um, you know, because at the end of the day, like, Grett was the one who had the decision to eliminate him, and his problem was showing that he was a big threat to the other team. So when someone from the other team got to eliminate someone from their team, he was chosen because he was a big threat. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Ellie and Gabby have their confessionals together too, and Ellie says that the money could have changed her life, but she got a prize that no amount of money can buy: true love. No, it was so sweet. Tom says he's got nothing. Oh, I probably should be looking at them, by the way. Yeah, that all happened. That happened. Um, that happened. Wait, Ellie, get out of here real quick. That happened. Okay, now Alec talked. Now, Tom's turn. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm so bad at this. Tom says that he got nothing out of this experience initially, but after he got eliminated, Gabby and Ellie helped him get a job at the police department. He's happy to at least have met them. So sweet, I guess. And then Jake, you're up next. Jake says he's grateful to have met people like Miriam and Lill, and he'll be happy as long as Grett doesn't win, because Grett kind of screwed him over. Now on to Miriam. Yeah. Sorry. Miriam says she's happy she decided to come here. Sure, she didn't win, but she's grateful to have met Jake. He's such a good kid, even though he's not. And then finally, Dan says he had a decent time here. His only downside was getting on Grett's bad side. Okay, yeah. Then all the losers are brought back to support their favorite finalists. Yay! Now let me do this. Where do I? I'll put it here. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay. We'll change the colors too, just to make it look cooler. Oh, that color. Um. Ugh. Okay, wait. Gretz can go to that color. There. There. Oh, now it's like orangish yellow. Yellow. Oh my god, that's so nice. Okay. They're all being brought back to support their favorite finalist. Grett is supported by Nick, Lill, Ashley, and Will. And Fiore is supported by Ellie, Gabby, and Alec. They're all in order. I didn't even plan that. And then finally, Drew is supported by Tom, Jake, Miriam, and Dan. Okay, there we go. Got them all who they're supporting. Okay, now each finalist can choose one person to help them in the finale. I guess I'll wait. Here we go. There. Okay. Yeah, so obviously, as you can tell by that writing, each finalist can choose one person to help them in the finale. Grett picks. Oh, yeah, okay. Grett picks. Grett picks. There. Grett picks Nick. Obviously, like they bonded a lot. She doesn't really know Ashley or Will, and she bonded a lot with Lill, but I think ultimately she bonded more with. Um, she bonded more with Nick. Sorry, couldn't think of his name. Fiore chooses Ellie. That's true. Fiore chooses Ellie. Um, because they were in an alliance for a very long time, and they also got very close before Ellie's elimination. And then finally, Drew is going to pick Tom. Because even though they didn't, like, they're not that close, they didn't really get to know each other too well. Drew knows Tom is very strong physically, which could help him out if he wants to get to the final two. Okay, now on to the challenge. To get to the final two, the finalists must dive into a lake to search for a key. Once they have said key, they must race to the dining hall, open a chest with their key, and inside the chest will be a map. They will then use the map to find a marked area where there will be a shovel, which will be important for the second part of the challenge. Once they have their shovel, they will use the map to get to the finish line. The first two campers to get to cross the finish line with their shovel will be in the final two. The finalists then start racing. Drew and Fiore make a deal to slow Grett down as she has the clear advantage. Meanwhile, Grett and Nick are happy to be reunited, and Nick wants to do anything he can to help her win. They're the first two at the lake, Nick and Grett. And since Grett can't swim, Nick goes for the key. Fiore, Tom, Ellie, and Drew then get to the lake, and Tom goes to actually. I should probably. Oh no, they are separated. Okay, good. And then Tom goes for both keys, as he's the most athletic, and he'll probably be able to find the keys the best. Tom gets out of the water first, and they go to run. And Tom hands Fiore her key, but then Grett has her amazing plan, and she sticks out her foot, causing Tom to trip, and he loses his key, and he has to dive into the water again and look for his key. Which gives Grett the lead as Nick pops out of the water shortly after with a key. Ellie panics and whispers to Fiore that they should just ditch Drew, as Tom would be hell to face in the final two. Fiore yells no and stutters while trying to come up with a reason to not leave them, to not leave them. Sorry, my throat is so raspy for talking for so long. Oops. Okay, yeah. So Ellie's trying to convince Fiore to ditch Tom and Drew. But Fiore is against this, and she yells no. And she tries to stutter, coming up with an excuse to not ditch Drew and Tom. But then suddenly Tom pops out of the water with a key, and they all continue. Fiore then has a confessional saying she's not saying she cares for Drew, but if she had to choose another person to win other than herself, Drew wouldn't necessarily be at the bottom of her list. Tom quickly shows up with the second key, and the four of them get moving. Nick and Grett both get to the cabins first, and get their maps. Because Drew and Fiore are falling behind, they come up with the idea to have Tom and Ellie carry each of them on their backs, or on their shoulders, I guess. Like Tom carries Drew, Ellie carries Fiore. It's just easier because Ellie and Tom are much faster. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. This allows them to catch up to Grett and Nick, who are barely just ahead of them now. But Tom, Ellie, Fiore, and Drew are surprised to find that Grett and Nick aren't going to the finish line. So they check their maps again, and Fiore notices that the X on the map is smudged and was recently drawn on. We then find out that Grett and Nick drew on fake X's on their maps with some leftover Sharpies from that they found in the cabins. But by the time they realize this, it's too late. Nick and Grett have reached the finish line, and Grett has already placed her spot in the final two. She becomes the first finalist. So I guess I'll move her up here. I don't know. Sure. Because now the race is between Fiore and Drew. It's now a race between Fiore and Drew, and as Drew and Tom approach the finish line first, and like Fiore and Ellie are kind of left behind, Fiore panics, takes a deep breath, and then whispers to Ellie to just go along with it. Ellie is completely confused, but then Fiore hits her across the head with her shovel. Fiore cries out for help as she yells at Ellie. As she yells that Ellie just collapsed. This leads to Tom and Drew, along with Gabby. I guess I'll get Gabby here too. Look at Gabby; she's so worried. This leads to Tom and Drew, along with Gabby, rushing to Ellie's side. Gabby tells Drew to pump her chest while Gabby attempts to give her CPR. Drew starts to do this, but then feels his shovel slide away from him. And the next thing he knows, Ellie is throwing his shovel behind them, and Fiore is announced the second finalist. Meaning Drew is out of the game in third place. I guess. Oh no, I shouldn't delete that yet because But this is. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, Gabby supporting Alec. Drew third place. Then Fiore is the second final. Okay, so yeah, Tom, you're not a helper anymore. These are our final two. Also, these 4 people will have to pick a new person to support. Jake obviously chooses Fiore as he's really mad at Gresh. Miriam chooses Fiore as she hates Gresh. Dan also probably chooses Fiore because she's mad at Gresh. And since Fiore just tricked Tom, Tom's going to choose Grett. Okay, this is it. Okay. With final 2, we're going to decide. Also, Drew would have to support someone, and he's obviously going to choose Grett. Now that Fiore just betrayed him, also, I should probably move it like that so the colors aren't weird. So this is how it is. I'm just, Drew is supporting Grett, but I'm going to move him up to second, or to third, just to show how it is. Okay. So, yeah, that just happened, also. Fiore just can... Okay, yeah, Fiore is announced the second finalist, meaning Drew is out of the game. Drew has a confessional yelling as he just lost a chance to fix his own and his mother's life. Because of that. Fiore then has a confessional where she seems genuinely upset that she had to do that to Drew, but then she puts on a fake smirk as she has the iconic Surrey Field line, and as she says, she learned very young that she might not always be able to beat them with this, as she points to her arm, but she can always beat them with this, as she points to her head. That makes Fiore and Grett the final 2, and the final part of the challenge has the finalists dig in a sandpit until they find a gas canister. Once they have that, they can race to the top of the hill, put the gas in one of the go-karts, sorry, and drive to the finish line. The first one to cross will win Disventure Camp, and the $1 million that comes with it. Grett has the same plan as the original, so she tells Nick to continue digging in the dirt pit while she runs off to find the go-karts. Fiore notices Grett's absence and asks Ellie to follow her to make sure she doesn't do anything. Grett cuts up the wires and pours a drink into the purple, highlighting purple go-kart. Then, after she leaves, Ellie swaps the flags like Tom did originally. However, after Ellie leaves, Grett comes out from behind the bushes she's been hiding in, and Ellie thinks she's gone. Then Grett comes back out after Ellie's gone and swaps the flags around again. So the purple go-kart is the damaged one. Fiore then finds her gas canister quickly and heads up the hill, where Ellie greets her and tells her to use the purple go kart. Grett gets back to Nick, and together they finally find their second gas canister, but Fiore has a huge lead. But Grett isn't giving up. Fiore gets about halfway up the hill, but her go kart starts freaking out and starts going really slow. This allows Grett to catch up to her, and they are neck and neck until Grett overtakes her and is about to cross the finish line. But all of a sudden, Fiore punches her go kart, and she starts going flying, and ooh, she crashes into a tree, allowing Grett to cross the finish line, and Grett wins Disventure camp. She jumps out of her go kart and starts jumping up and down while cheering. Derek hands Grett the money, but then the police show up and arrest Trevor, Derek, and Johnson for all they've done to the forest and the animals, shocking everyone. Gabby then karate chops Derek for killing the animals and hands him over to the officers. So Trevor and Derek are taken captive, but Jensen punches a police officer, takes the money off Grett, and runs off with the bus, with Tom following behind him. And then the rest is the same. Tom comes back with Grett's money, and Grett gets her money so she can have her dream of being a famous book author. And the police collect everyone and bring them all home. Then we see Crystal and Oliver watching the show, and they announce All Stars. So Fiore is our runner-up, and Grett is the winner of Disventure Camp in this What If. Nice. Okay. I'll place everyone back in their elimination order as I talk about how I felt with this What If. I thought this What If was actually really good for my first Disventure Camp What If. I really liked how it went. I really like the idea of giving more characters a reason to win, because I really like when characters have a reason to actually want to make it to the end and actually have a reason to need the money other than just wanting $1 million. I think giving certain characters a very desperate reason to want to win and not giving them their win, it may feel a little bit mean, but I also like it because it allows you to root for that character even more after they haven't won. Because they need that money. I don't know. I don't know if none of you understand what I'm talking about here, but I think it makes a little bit of sense. I don't know. Anyway, I thought this What If turned out really well. I don't know how many people are going to watch this video because it's a Disventure Camp What If, and I know Disventure Camp is obviously it's not as popular as Total Drama, because Total Drama was aired all over television, where Disventure Camp is only on YouTube. But I don't know, maybe some people will watch this, maybe I'll continue doing Disventure Camp What Ifs in the future. If not, I really enjoyed this one anyway. So I hope you guys like this video, do all that stuff, subscribe, do whatever if you want. You don't have to, but it'd be cool if you did, I guess. And yeah, I'll see you guys again. I promise it won't take as long as it did, 3 months. I'm so sorry it took me that long to make this What If. And anyway, bye!